Hello there! In this video, we're gonna take a hike into what some call the most remote ghost town in all of America. A hike so grueling that most guidebooks say that it'll take 2 days. And because of its remote nature, there's supposedly all sorts of the town left over. So let's go check it out. All right, so in this video, I am headed to the town of Beveridge. And Beveridge is one of those Shangri-La towns that everybody seems to have heard about, but nobody's been there themselves, except a late mentor of mine that had been hiking these hills for the last 30 years. You know, a true desert rat. He taught me how to use heavy machinery, walk the wash, all sorts of things. And one of the last conversations that we ever had at a cabin just above this was about his regret about not being able to show me Beveridge. You know, at the time his health wasn't good enough. And so this video is very much about finding an amazingly cool hidden mining town, but it's also about remembering my late friend. Now, Beveridge, much like all the mines in this mountain range, has a connection to Cerro Gordo. And that is because in 1877, William L. Hunter sold his other lead mine to Mortimer Belshaw, and he found the Bighorn mine. And that started kind of the Beveridge bonanza. Eventually, he would put in a 5-stamp mill below there. After all was said and done, they pulled around $500,000 back then money worth of gold out of the area. And the miners worked until about the late 1890s. But Beveridge is probably best known for just how inaccessible it is. You know, if you start from the Saline Valley side, you're going from 1,000 feet of elevation, scrambling up a mountain to about 7,000 feet in elevation, and then dropping back down to 3,000 feet once you get into the proper town of Beveridge. The book, Hiking Western Death Valley National Parks, calls it the most difficult hike in the park. Another report said, unless you're going with someone who has been there before, a trek to Beveridge is very dangerous, and this hike may be done in 2 days if one is in peak physical condition. So with that, let's go find some cool stuff. All right, just getting packed up for Beveridge. I got 2 gallons of water, cold gear, food, water filtration, because apparently there's water down in Beveridge. And now it's just working on capturing that all, which will take, 20, 30 pounds of camera gear. But I'm really excited. You know, I kind of need a little unwind, disconnect. So this is going to be a fun one. And tomorrow, before the sun even rises, I'm going to hit it. Hopefully get down into Frenchie's cabin before it gets too far into the day. Oh, baby. All right, and just like that, the hike to Beveridge begins. Sun's not even out yet. The plan is today to hike, get to Frenchie's cabin, hunker down, spend a day in Frenchie's cabin exploring Beveridge, you know, have a full day to do a proper explore, and then the third day, head down the Saline Valley side. But it is just stunning out here right now. I mean, look at that. As the hike started, it was among the most beautiful sights I'd ever been in. You know, the sun was rising over the Sierras and the Inyos and just casting this light through all the bristle cones and across the rock. You know, it was one of the few times I was really just stopped in my tracks. You know, I appreciate the beauty up here all the time, but it was such an overwhelming experience that I just became stoked on the hike. There was obviously animal tracks, there was vegetation, and it just seemed like the terrain was gonna be much different than what I encounter every day here at Cerro Gordo. I mean, just look at this. I don't know that I've ever seen anything this pretty. Across the way, you can see Whitney with the first sprinkling of snow of the year. I've already seen some deer, which I never see at Cerro Gordo. I think this is going to be a really special hike, and I'm really, really excited about it.
And I try to remember along the way sometimes just to stop and look behind me and take it in, because while Beveridge is the destination and kind of the goal, I mean, this looks like the goal to me. Whew. Incredible. From up here, you can get a pretty good view of Owens Lake, you know, almost the outline of what it used to be like. I imagine, you know, when the miners were hiking into Beveridge, the view of the lake must have just been incredible. You know, this time of day, just the light reflecting off of it, maybe mirroring the image of the mountains. It's interesting, and whenever I look down at the lake, I'm just reminded of the consequences of short-term thinking. You know, I don't know that the guys that helped do that would think in, 100 years that this would be the result. And so that's always in the shadows of Cerro Gordo. And so everything I do at Cerro Gordo, I try to keep a long-term mindset to not end up like something like that. All right, so right now I'm at 10,420 feet in elevation. I believe from here, it's just going to be a steady drop. I'm going to go over there, then start dropping into Beveridge Canyon. I like the trees. I don't get many trees over at Cerro Gordo, so that's nice. But I think it's a pretty, well, I could say it's all downhill from here, but I think it's going to be a pretty intense downhill once I have to drop off of this ridge line. So at this point, I'm going to start leaving some cairns, some stacks of rock. So maybe the next person will know at least another human being was here. Any trails on the 1975 map are no longer here. They've been washed out. So now it's just a little bit of bushwhacking. I know that Beveridge is somewhere down that canyon. I know that I need to go down that canyon maybe another 3 miles to get to Beveridge, or to get to Frenchie's cabin, the first place I'm looking for. And so I'm gonna sit here, drink a bunch of water, and mentally prepare myself to get back into another wash.
For me, the hike was just a really nice return to solitude. That feeling that I had so much more when I first moved to Cerro Gordo. There was a time when every day I had nothing to do but just be in nature and enjoy it. Notice the subtle things like the sun hitting the rock a certain way, a funny stump on a certain tree, or even how the wind had changed directions. There's a true peace that comes with being alone with the time to appreciate all that. And I think that's why so many people seek out these solo hiking trips or adventures. That's what drove my mentor out here, to just be fully immersed with no distraction. And these days in town, there's pretty much always activity. I just don't find myself noticing things as much. There's so much benefit to all these new people in town, but there is a bit of the experience that is different. On this hike, I was reminded of that. Reminded of the excitement of a new adventure, much like my early days here. I don't think you have to go far to find it. Even just going to a park alone or a beach and just allow yourself to be undistracted by anyone around you. It's a really comforting feeling to tap back into. I'm starting to see more cans and signs of human life. So I'm wondering if I'm getting close to a spring or some old mine or campsite. I know there's a lot of prospects along here as well. So it's not just Frenchie's cabin, it's not just Beveridge. There's other prospects. More signs of human life. It's leveling out a little bit, so it's not as steep. Well, I found my first cliff. Had my first little tumble. That's just because I have this 60-pound bag on, but it's definitely a more cliffy
but I hear water. There's trickling water over here. I didn't come into this the right way. Just take your time. Yeah, this is a spring. Well, kind of committed now. Oof. Well, I'm down here now, and it's definitely a spring. These are actually thorn bushes, so I'm just tearing myself up being down here. This stuff is gnarly, ripping apart my legs.
And after not even pushing it that hard, in about 4 hours, I came upon a big rose bush, a wild rose bush suddenly in the wash. And anytime you're in the desert and you see a new plant and a new plant that seems to be thriving, there's probably water there. And so when I saw that, I thought, I must be getting somewhere near this cabin I was looking for.
Oh. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like this could only be one thing. Our home for the evening. That is awesome. Yes, and there's water just flowing, ready to be drank. We made it! That wasn't bad at all. I made it here in about 5 hours from the route I took.
The cabin itself is just beautifully tucked away next to this ravine. It's got trees around it. It's on kind of a bluff as well. So I dropped my bag and checked out the cabin, and it was very obvious that people have been taking care of this thing.
Oh man, look. People have made up the bunks. There's even a cooler. Sandals. Sign in cooler. Look at this. How cool is this? How did they get all this stuff in here? So apparently in here there's supposed to be a logbook. Yep, fair enough. Logbook it is. When did this start? Note, when you hike in the town of Beveridge, watch for snakes. Bad ones after outhouse. We found them in creek bed. That's terrifying. 1991. All right, I settled in a little bit, had some lunch, drank some more water, and I have about 3.5 hours of sunlight left probably. And Beveridge itself is another 45 minutes down from here. So I think for today what I'm gonna do is just prepare for the evening, get my bed set up, get some wood. Dinner is served. This is chilling back. This is about as good as it gets for the MRE world. So I think I'm really just gonna call it really early today, because I think I'm gonna try to get up really early in the morning and go down to Beveridge proper. That's where the stamp mill is, that's where a lot of the old tramway, that's where a lot of this mining happened. So for now, I think I deserve a break, after quite a hike. And so I'm gonna relax, wind down for the evening, and then get it going all over again in the morning. Something very comforting about coffee. No matter where you are in the world or even what setting, I think it just starts the day off pretty good. Whether you're out here in the middle of nowhere or at a fancy hotel, that first sip of coffee lets you know the day's about to begin. All right, and so it begins. The trek into the proper town of Beveridge. I have this machete that somebody left behind, which might work out nicely given how thick some of these bushes are. Well, well, well. What do we have here? Old stone structure of some type from back in the day. Maybe like a sluice box or a old mill of some type. Some people have found some cool things before here. Huh. I wonder if they were mining above it and then sending it down through that. Some type of crushing or refining. We got another stone cabin over here. I mean, building out of stone makes sense because we're so remote right now that carrying in any materials would be such a pain. You know, I was thinking about that last night when I was at Frenchie's cabin. It's like, how did you get all these building materials in there? But then I looked at the wall and the majority of it is just stone. And look at this thing. I mean, this is 100 and something years old. Probably looks pretty similar to the day it was put up. It's just crazy that they had to look on that hillside, find the right rocks, and just stack them. You can see somebody did some trail maintenance for us. Whoa, look at that. Look at that stone building just built on the side of the hill. That looks so cool. It almost looks like there was like a mine or a furnace at the back, a bunch of old tin cans. Well, I dropped down from the ridge. I'm back in the thick of things, or thicket of leaves, I should say. And right over here, look at that. A complete old blue bottle. It says BGC on the bottom. I don't know if that's an applied lip or not. I think it is. It's an 1800s bottle. BGC. But that'll stay right there for the next adventure. All right, so now I'm back on the other side of the ridge. I was just kind of scrambling around, and we got another stone cabin of sorts here. So I think you're supposed to hug this side up here. And then eventually, hopefully I'll see, oh, there we go. You see that chimney over there? There's some type of chimney ahead of me. So this must be it. This must be Beveridge proper. You can see some old cabins. I'm obsessed with this stamp mill, so I'm gonna have to go over here. And so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stamp mill. Those things you see would go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down to smash up some ore. Oh wow, look. Some type of old engine or a way to potentially get stuff from the river to here. They would have had some type of table out here to collect it down closer to the water probably. This is the boiler that would have supplied power to the stamp mill. And it's just a beautiful structure. And so there would have been a lot of guys down here pulling out the ore. But down in here there's all sorts of just decrepit old buildings. And it's a lot different than Cerro Gordo. You know, one, because there's a gold mine, but two, there's water here and it's in this canyon. So it's quite beautiful. You know, these trees, especially this time of year, are gorgeous. So I can't imagine living here. I'll try to bushwhack our way to the river itself. But let's just check out these other cabins first. So a sad thing about Beveridge that I read is back in the 70s, this town was very well preserved. You know, there's still so much stuff here because of its remote nature. And, you know, this was before internet. And so it was just this hidden treasure that nobody really knew about. And then a treasure collector heard about that. And he chartered a helicopter in here. He couldn't even come in himself. And just looted the place. Took all sorts of things of value. There's even this magazine article, I think in Treasure magazine, of him smiling and laughing at all the stuff that he took out of here. And I think that's horrible. You know, these days obviously there's the BLM and there's laws and regulations against that stuff, but you know, it's just selfish and short-sighted, I think. And so hopefully if you do come to places like this, leave them as they are. Leave everything that you find where they are. You know, this is something for the public to enjoy at this point. And it's kind of up to all of us to make that happen. Sun's coming up here in the valley and it looks beautiful. And I was walking this way, and you can see the aerial tramway right there. And this is what I read about in the logbook. This is basically an outhouse that is supported and by nothing. The other thing that the guidebook said is this is where they saw a lot of snakes, was specifically by the outhouse to nowhere. So now that the sun's coming out, might mean the snakes are coming out. So I'm gonna be extra observant, I guess would be the right word, to make sure I don't end up with any snakes. But let's try to open this thing up. Watch it just be like Indiana Jones full of snakes.
You know, one of my favorite things to do is just sit and look at these abandoned cabins and try to imagine, you know, who built them, why they built them, you know, what were their hopes and dreams, and then to kind of zoom back out into the present and see Mother Nature taking them back over. It's just a reminder that, you know, our time here is limited. You know, if there's things you want to go out and do, you should do them, you know, because you never know what's going to happen, and your dreams may one day just be a reminder in a cabin being overgrown by bushes. And I think for me, having that context of my friend that passed, you know, and him sending me to Beveridge and spending the last few days with him and talking about some things that he wished he would have done before he went, it just made me motivated, you know, motivated to continue on course, doing something that I believe in.
You know, my first impression here after walking around is that it's so peaceful and beautiful. You know, the contrast of these desert mountains and Saline Valley back this way with this little oasis almost. You know, it feels very much like an oasis. All this water and trees and color in the middle of the desert. It's beautiful. And there she is, the end of the tramway. And they even left a nice cable cord to act as a rope down there. And here we go. Just how it might have been last been dumped. So this would have gone into here, sort the rocks by size, down there to get milled more. You know, still on the cable it would have came in from. So these buckets would have been coming from the mine or the operation way up there. Come down here, get unloaded here, drop down into that, sorted, and you can still see it's still hanging. And the thought of just getting all these heavy gears and equipment, or even these buckets here, it's truly insane. The thought of even bringing mules in that canyon, I don't know how they did it, unless they just trudged through the river. You got the second bucket, Trenton Iroco. So that was the same brand that I saw when I bought the salt tram. So back in the day, Trenton must have been the go-to guys when it comes to any type of tramway bucket. A lot of the old machinery, again, just imagine having to bring that into here. It's just remarkable. Well, you can see some of the old piping made out of wood. Instead of having to carry in some heavy steel pipes, they were just making them tongue and groove. This bad boy.
And so after a pretty full day of exploring around Beveridge, I started back to Frenchie's. And I knew that there was more to explore around Beveridge below the town towards Saline Valley, but I also knew I was gonna leave through that way. Little did I know what the third day had in store. You know, I wasn't super stressed about the hike out, given how easy the hike in was. I knew it was gonna be more difficult, and so my plan was to hike from Beveridge to a place called Snowflake Mine. It looked a little sketchy on the map. I knew there was gonna be a lot of elevation change. It was gonna go from about 3,000 up to 7,000, then back down to 1,000. But if there's a trail, I wasn't too worried about it. And so I think I heavily discounted the difficulty of day 3. There is a side hill where you gain, 4,000 feet in elevation, scrambling up loose rock. The trail disappears pretty much right after Beveridge, and you find yourself just wading through a creek, water, and I'm wearing tennis shoes, so water is just seeping into my tennis shoes, into my insulated socks that I wore because I thought it would be cold. And at the same time, I'm just hacking through rose bushes, just getting scraped up everywhere that isn't protected by these overgrown rose bushes. And so that went on for an hour or two. And finally, I kind of emerged from that, and up above me, I saw a trail. And I thought, oh, this is it. And right before the trail, I found a cabin in the wash.
Another structure here. Now look at this, tucked away, way down in here on the hike out to the snowflake. Obviously, a lot of people have been here. Got old batteries, old knife, shovel, mattress. Any Levi's? Just kidding. Old screw. Look at that, somebody could have been doing some mining. That's some dynamite fuse, lighter. I wonder if there's any dynamite around here. That'd be fun, huh? Ooh, oh, somebody had a chainsaw out here. Miner's helmet. Mining light. I found another mine up on the hill, and as I got under the trail, there's a couple of mines there, so I was like, all right, this thing is starting to work again. There's some ore carts. It was just a beautiful hike, looking into Saline Valley and then down into the canyon. And then the trail ended, and there was a cliff over here and a peak over here, a very steep peak. And so that is when the trudge began. And by trudge, I mean a scramble up about 3,000 feet in elevation in about maybe a half mile, quarter mile, and it's all just loose rock. And so it's that type of scrambling where you're almost on your hands and knees, just crawling up 50 feet, panting and continuing. And I was wearing my Garmin at that point, and my Garmin told me that it took me 4 hours to go 1 mile, just to give you an idea of how difficult it was. And during that time, I wasn't filming much. I was kind of in survival mode, just scrambling up. But eventually, I did reach the peak. And at that point, I was supposed to walk along the crest for a while on the way out to Snowflake. And I think that's where the realization came that I wasn't getting out of there before dark. Not a bad view, huh? I'll tell you what, this Snowflake Mine Trail is extremely difficult. So I'm hoping that get off of this ridge before it gets real dark, because it's pretty steep. Brian is waiting down there. Shout out Brian. And I think I got another hour or two. You can see if we would have stayed in that canyon, I would have been destroyed in that canyon. I was looking around, and the trail is very narrow, very loose, and a lot of exposure over to the side, and it became a very sober hike for a very bit of time as I tried to navigate myself to the trail, not lose it, while all the time then dropping down from 7,000 feet to 1,000 feet. So you're losing 6,000 feet. So it's just so much pressure on your knees as you're wearing this heavy pack. To be honest with you, it kicked my ass. And so when you read those reports online about the difficulty of the Beveridge hike, believe it. Especially if you're coming from the Saline Valley side, it is a absolutely brutal hike, and one that you definitely need to be prepared for. I don't know it's one that I would do again. It's a beautiful hike. It's a tremendous hike. One of these memories that I'll keep forever, but it's one that you need to be prepared for. But eventually, I did make my way to the bottom of the hill, and sure enough, Brian was waiting there, and Tim with their lights on, and plenty of snacks, which was much appreciated after a hike like that. And I'm glad I did it. I'm really stoked. It's something that meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to the guy, my friend who passed away. And so to do that is important to me. And now to understand what people are talking about when they talk about Beveridge, and hopefully have captured it for many of you that aren't able to go there yourselves, and hopefully for many future generations that even if they could go there, they might not see the same thing. It gets me excited. My kind of marching orders and goal here at Cerro Gordo from day one has been trying to preserve the history here for future generations. So if you do like these, and you want to keep seeing them, please subscribe to this channel. I don't often say that, but it does mean a lot to me. That way you guys get notifications anytime I go on these future hikes. I have a lot of mine explorations, a lot of hikes, a lot of building restoration, a lot of cool stuff coming, which I'm super excited about.
So with that, I'm gonna sign out. I hope you all find yourselves in an amazing week. I hope you find a hike of your own to go on, and maybe a way to preserve history, even if it's just writing a note to your future self or something like that. But anyways, hope you all have a great week. I'm signing out, and I will see you all next time.